Okay, the hot take is company values. Remember when people ask us, oh, why does HeyTaco not do mandatory value recognition when you're giving a taco? And there's a reason why we don't do that, right? So people actually have to think of it versus just mandate it. But the question is, how do people, or how can companies actually ensure and inspire people to live their company values?
Well, number one, I don't think people should be depending on software to do the job that leadership should be doing, right? So leadership should be demonstrating the values of the company. That's the best way, leading by example. And then in the softwares, you can just, if people want to identify with the core values of the company, there's their opportunity to do so.
That's a really good point. I also think that teaching what the values actually mean, right? Integrity, trust, excellence, they're so broad, right? So if leadership could teach the values through stories, maybe
Mm-hmm.
every so often you share the story about why is excellence a company value for HeyTaco or XYZ company. And this is the moment when we realize this was important to us. But teaching those values through stories, I think would be actually more impactful. And it does take work. Like you can't automate it, but you can't automate a great culture. You can't automate people living your company values.
That's right. Yeah. Um, Years ago, when I worked at the Motley Fool, we had core values, but we also had our own core value that we got to bring to the core value process. And I thought that was a great way to engage people, right? So now all of a sudden, people had the company's values, and then they had their one core value that kind of tied in to the mission of the company. And I think it was a neat idea because what that does, it allows us to be unique individuals within this huge mission. And I think it's a great way to connect with other people when you can kind of identify your own core value, but also it makes kind of talking about core values fun and different. And I think it resonates with people. And then now all of a sudden, core values are people are living your core values because people can identify their own personal core value and group it into the company's mission and the company's core values.
What was your core value?
Mine was inventiveness. Yeah, inventiveness.
And did you pick it or did people designate you for it?
I picked it. However, I think that would be a fun idea for people to nominate, individual core values for people, though that could get probably a little wild.
How did you share it with people? Was it like on your profile on some sort of intranet, or how do people know what your core value is?
Yeah, we all had a little printout that you posted on you posted on your desk somewhere. It was framed. Somebody really thought about it really well and did a really great job. But we had a little frame, and then in the frame it had your name, and then and we called it your motley, right? But it was really your personal core value,
Sounds like a hey taco. We should call it your taco,
your
your
taco.
taco
Yeah,
flavor.
yeah, yeah. Flavor.
When in my last company, we had core values, but then every core value was tied to behaviors. It's like, hey, if let's say core value was pursue deep trust. And one of the ways to do that was assume the highest intent, right? When you're going into a conversation with the person, don't assume that they are just rude and malintentioned. Just assume the highest intent, right? Until they're prove you wrong. So you had certain behaviors of ask clarifying questions, be curious, assume the highest intent through which you live that value. And that made it so grounded, right? I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, because when you say pursue deep trust, like, what does that even mean? When you say, hey,
Mm-hmm.
just assume the highest intent and the best in a person, oh, I can do that, right? I know how to do that.
Yeah. I think for so many companies, core values are just words on a wall. And the reason why I think this is based on how many people are reaching out to us, asking us, "Hey, we're interested in using your software because we want people to live our core values." And so there's an obvious need for this. Well, at least people think there's a need for this, and I really do believe it does start with this is this is the time when top down is the way to go, and it really does. It starts with leadership. It starts with the CEO, the founders. The behaviors they demonstrate are the behaviors that people are going to feel that, oh, that's how I'm supposed to treat this person, or that's how I'm supposed to behave. Why Hey Taco values are not like everybody else's. We had a little pop up that would ask you which core value you'd like to associate with the taco you just gave, and people hated it. all of a sudden this fun thing that just happens in the moment became a job for people, right? And I saw engagement dip, and people were just really upset now that in order to recognize somebody in the moment, they had to like fill out a form. And so I quickly removed the pop up that would ask for the core value, and just went to a very simple way of doing it. And it was a simple way that was familiar with most people, and that was just using a hashtag. Everybody knows what a hashtag means, and when you see one, you know what it does. And people just got it, and it makes it didn't create friction in the moment, right? For me to say thank you, I didn't have to open up a modal and pick how many tacos I wanted to give you, and then select a core value, and then submit the form. It just made giving tacos easy, and it made them more meaningful now that you could add core values with using a hashtag.
What if people just forget to add a hashtag? Like, what do
Yeah.
you in those cases when people ask you that, like, what do you suggest?
It happens all the time, and that's okay. And that's what makes it so even more powerful, because when people do use a hashtag, you know that the intention was high, right? Because they took the time to actually think about it, they knew it, and then they typed it out. Whereas if you just have a preloaded drop down, people don't really need to know what the core values are. Now all they need to do is just pick one. So removing that out of the user's experience, and kind of requiring them to remember in order to type it out is going to help tremendously when it comes to getting people to not only live those core values but remember them.
Turns out inspiring is a lot better than compliance, right? Inspiring people to do the thing that they want to do is so much better than putting rules in place where now they must do it. That doesn't create a good culture.
No, absolutely not. Yeah, I mean, I've had calls, and I'm sure you've had them too, where people don't want tacos to be given unless they have a core value. And now I'm thinking, okay, that defeats the purpose of HeyTaco. Now all of a sudden you're adding policy to something that used to be so fun, right? And what's going to happen once you start mandating people to use core values? You know what's going to happen, Una.
People are not going to use it
People
at
aren't going to
all.
use it. Yep, engagement's going to dip. And so if you want people to be engaged with something, they have to be having fun with it. And as soon as you start adding policy and rules and mandates, it really cuts into the user's experience, and it cuts into the fun of HeyTaco.
I think that's a perfect little hot take.